Tonight, Donald Trump reveals a key reason he wants to acquire Greenland: sour grapes over the Nobel Peace Prize.
He's sort of a hissy fit about not getting the prize.
The candid and stunning revelations from texts between Trump and Norway's prime minister as NATO allies band together.
Our prime minister is walking a tightrope in what he does.
Should Canada send troops in support? A 19-year-old Canadian found dead on an Australian beach, surrounded by dingoes.
We're deeply shocked and saddened.
The growing concern about the wild dogs and tourists. And sticker shock at the grocery store.
Everything's on the rise, so you live with it.
What is driving inflation up and consumer confidence way down?
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
Thanks for joining us. Donald Trump's fixation on seizing Greenland from NATO ally Denmark has baffled and alarmed even some supporters. Now, a text exchange with Norway's prime minister reveals his reasoning: retribution and bitterness. In it, he links his push to take Greenland to Norway's failure to grant him a Nobel Peace Prize. Seeming to bat aside concerns taking the territory would break the NATO alliance, he says, "I have done more for NATO than any other person, and now NATO should do something for the United States." As Chris Brown explains, while Trump continues to invoke U.S. national security, his text suggests taking Greenland is also about grievance.
More Danish boots on the ground arrived in Greenland, with Europe in full emergency mode over Donald Trump's threats to take over the island. A new text conversation is fueling the sense that his Greenland obsession may really be about sour grapes. Norway's prime minister texted in part to Trump, "We believe we all should work to take this down and de-escalate." Trump replied, "Considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace."
Donald Trump to a very
In fact, it's not Norway's government that hands out the prize.
I think that the particular choice of words certainly relates to the fact that he's sort of a hissy fit about not getting the prize.
Despite the text being released and confirmed by Norway's government, Trump's Treasury Secretary was dismissive.
It's a complete canard that the president will be doing this because of the Nobel Prize.
Trump has said the U.S. needs title to Greenland, which is an autonomous territory of Denmark, to stop Russia or China from getting it. He's vowed to hit 8 European NATO nations who recently sent troops to Greenland with tariffs starting next month until he gets what he wants. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz underscored Europe has options for retaliation, with tariffs of its own or restrictions on U.S. businesses, as other leaders signaled a kind of reluctant resolve.
We are pragmatic, cold-blooded Scandinavian people with a warm heart, but it is not easy when we wake up every morning to new threats.
The right way to approach an issue of this seriousness is through calm discussion between allies.
Greenland not for sale!
Trump's threats have generated strong anti-U.S. sentiments in Europe. At this NBA game in London Sunday night, a heckler's call out to leave Greenland alone got a rousing ovation. Addressing that text exchange in a brief phone call with NBC News, Trump said he didn't believe that the Norwegian government doesn't have a say in selecting Nobel Prize winners. Adrian.
And Chris, with European and possibly Canadian troops heading to Greenland, did he say he was willing to use the U.S. military to get his way?
Well, he gave another ambiguous answer when pressed on that. He said no comment. But then he said the Europeans really ought to be more concerned about the war between Russia and Ukraine, because in his words, you can see what that's gotten them. Another jab, if you will, at European leadership, and also the implication that the Europeans shouldn't waste their time trying to stop him. Adrian.
All right. That is Chris Brown in London. Thank you. So, as mentioned, Canada is considering sending a contingent of troops to support other European allies who oppose Donald Trump's grab for Greenland. And as Evan Dyer explains, either way, the decision carries some unavoidable risks.
Canada faces a tough decision over Trump's threat to take Greenland, with Denmark calling on allies to show their support.
To show the American president, you have a desire, you have a vision, you have a request, but you will never be able to achieve that by putting pressure on us.
Several European allies have answered the call, although their deployments are small and symbolic.
They're not sending soldiers in numbers that would actually defend bases and towns in Greenland from any true attack, but they are saying something very clear.
Sources tell CBC News that Canada is considering a plan to send a small number of soldiers to Greenland. They could be deployed by the end of the week.
Canada really can't do anything but support Greenland and Denmark in this circumstance.
Canada's former ambassador to the UN says Ottawa needs to stick by NATO allies, meaning Canadian boots on the ground in Greenland now, if it expects support from Europe later.
Canada can't afford to be ambivalent about this because we're now on the menu. And that is something I think every Canadian needs to understand, that Canada's own integrity and our own territorial sovereignty is very much at stake.
Trump has warned the countries that deploy to Greenland they're playing a very dangerous game. The former chief of defense staff says NATO faces a do-or-die test.
Our prime minister is walking a tightrope in what he does when you don't really want to be in the clear view of a bully, especially when there are big negotiations coming. But I think you do want to do what you have to do to stand up for your morals and integrities.
And other analysts warn that acting later, out of step with other allies, raises the risks.
It's a descending pathway into a very dangerous situation if we don't act. Canadian government has sat on its hands for too long.
The Canadian government has postponed a decision on Canadian deployments while the Prime Minister is out of the country. He's set to return to Ottawa on Wednesday.
And so, Evan, there are already some elements of the Canadian forces inside Greenland, as I understand it.
Yes, we understand some Canadian F-18s have deployed to Greenland for a NORAD mission that was planned previously. And that mission will see Americans, Danes, and Canadians working alongside as if these were normal times. But the Danes are looking for a bigger and longer lasting troop commitment to come not alongside U.S. forces, but potentially to defend the island from them.
All right, Evan Dyer in Ottawa, thank you.
Thanks, Adrian.
Donald Trump's interest in Greenland is not shared by most U.S. voters, perhaps another indication that what's driving this is personal, not political. Mike Crawley shows us where Americans stand.
Beyond the White House gates, it can be hard to find support for Donald Trump's idea of taking over Greenland.
Why is he so interested in Greenland? He can't take care of America.
He kind of wants the United States to become an empire, so I'm not sure if that is really good for the United States in the long run.
Okay, Greenland. What the hell is he doing in Greenland?
That we would take Greenland.
Even among some congressional Republicans, there's little enthusiasm.
There certainly is no authority that the president has to use military force to seize territory from a NATO country.
On the war powers or on militarily invading Greenland, I've heard of no Republican support for that. But as far as trying to buy it peacefully, you don't get purchasers to come around by berating them and telling them you'll take it anyway.
I don't foresee military intervention.
But not all agree. Here's what Speaker Mike Johnson, a Trump loyalist, told the BBC.
Greenland has strategic importance to us because of its geography, its placement. We live in a dangerous time and a dangerous world, and the president's recognition of that is not something new.
What's far from clear is whether the American public sees Greenland the way Trump does. In a country so often split along partisan lines over policies, several recent polls suggest Greenland is an exception. One poll by CBS News finds 86% of Americans oppose using military force to take over the Arctic island. Even among Republicans, 70% are against.
It's very rare that you have this level of agreement among the American public on anything. When you talk about military action to get Greenland, we're at a level of approval normally reserved for contagious diseases.
The question now is whether that low level of support will grow as Donald Trump makes his case for controlling Greenland, or if the opposition is strong enough to persuade him to back down. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Washington.
Another world leader has announced an invitation to join Donald Trump's Board of Peace. Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Kremlin says it's trying to clarify all the nuances before Putin accepts the position. But given Russia's invasion and 4-year war on Ukraine, the invitation is raising more questions about the purpose of the Board of Peace. It was originally proposed to help with the reconstruction of Gaza. Russian ally Belarus says its leader, Alexander Lukashenko, was also invited. Prime Minister Mark Carney said he agreed to join in principle, but still needs to work out the details. Well, the death of a Canadian woman just 19 years old is under investigation tonight in a remote part of Australia. As Michelle Song explains, wild dogs known as dingoes were part of the horrific scene.
A picturesque Australian tourist destination, now at the center of a major investigation. A Canadian woman was found dead on the beach, surrounded by a pack of wild dogs called dingoes. How she died, unclear.
We simply can't confirm whether this young lady drowned or died as a result of being attacked by dingoes.
Police say the 19-year-old spent the last 6 weeks on Gari, an island located off Queensland. She was working at a hostel and told her colleagues that morning she was going for a swim. 2 men later found her body.
There was markings on her body consistent with having been touched and interfered with by the dingoes.
Dingoes are native to the island and protected by the region, and generally allowed to roam free. But interactions with humans are a growing concern.
Oh my God.
But rarely are they fatal. The last deadly attack was 25 years ago when a 9-year-old boy was mauled by a dingo.
There's more and more interactions with dingoes, and there's lots of issues, probably in parallel, some of the issues with bears in North America, where people feed the dingoes. And the dingoes become habituated to humans and then they become a problem.
Although it's not yet clear whether dingoes caused the woman's death, the community is still left shaken.
We're deeply shocked and saddened. We all need to always remain vigilant when we're in, national parks and places like Gari Fraser Island, because there is wildlife and it's unpredictable and it can be dangerous.
Now signs are propped up to warn the tourists and locals of what happened as the investigation unfolds. Police say an autopsy is expected on Wednesday. Michelle Song, CBC News, Toronto.
Spain has declared 3 days of mourning after dozens of people were killed in a high-speed train collision. Briar Stewart shows us what happened as investigators search for a cause.
Throughout the night, rescue crews worked to reach victims trapped in mangled rail cars. Spain's deadliest train accident in more than a decade violently unfolded on a remote stretch of tracks more than 300 kilometers south of Madrid. The impact was like a sudden blow, said Montse Ruiz. I was sitting in the last seats of the carriage and I was thrown around. Just before 8 p.m., 3 carriages on a train bound for the capital derailed toward the opposite side of the track. Within 20 seconds, a train heading southbound collided with the cars. Its front 2 carriages fell down a 3.5-meter embankment. At least 40 were killed and dozens more are in hospital. This woman, who only gave her first name Anna, was pulled out of the train by other passengers who broke through the windows. Some were fine and others were really bad. You could see them dying and you could do nothing. The government has vowed a thorough and transparent investigation. Unlike another deadly crash in Spain in 2013, when 80 people were killed after a speeding train derailed on a curve, the trains in this case were going under the speed limit. Officials say the crash happened on a stretch of high-speed track that was renovated in 2025. The country's transportation minister called the accident extremely strange.
It's an unusual derailment because derailments don't often happen on a straight track.
This rail safety expert says these types of accidents are very rare.
In a Western European country where the rail systems are very well developed, it is a shock, to be honest.
Spain has Europe's largest network of high-speed rail lines, and last year the union representing Spanish train drivers had warned regulators that the rail infrastructure was deteriorating because of increased traffic. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
Power is slowly coming back tonight across Nova Scotia. At its height, a winter storm left 140,000 homes and businesses in the dark.
I noticed that there was a police vehicle with its lights flashing, and I thought, what's that about? And then I noticed the wire hanging down on the street and the giant branch that had broken off the tree across the way.
The weather has shut down the highway between Halifax and the airport for hours and closed schools. On PEI, Charlottetown saw more than 20 centimeters of snow. And it is thick, low-lying fog that is blanketing parts of Vancouver and Vancouver Island. An advisory in place since Saturday warns that there will be near zero visibility until Tuesday afternoon. High pressure over BC is trapping moisture and creating that dense fog. There are growing calls for the Alberta government to do more and fast to reduce long wait times in ERs. A doctor is sounding the alarm, saying a number of patients have gotten seriously ill. Some even died waiting for care. Julia Wong spoke with him today.
Alberta emergency rooms under pressure, and some doctors say people are dying while they wait.
Every single one of my colleagues in emergency medicine and internal medicine have been telling me they've never seen the system this bad.
This ER physician says he compiled a list. 6 deaths and dozens of so-called near misses in ERs in a 2-week period starting late December. They include a man who left ER after waiting at least 7 hours to be seen. He was later admitted to ICU with a serious blood infection and died. Also, a woman who waited 8 hours with a bowel obstruction. She was septic, underwent surgery, but died in ICU 24 hours later. The list sent to ministers and healthcare agencies with a plea for help.
This is the sampling of what we're seeing every day, and we feel very distressed that we cannot give safe and timely care.
The list, put together in the aftermath of Prashant Shrikumar's death. The 44-year-old died in an Edmonton ER after his family says he waited 8 hours to see a doctor. Albertans we spoke to have worries.
I know anytime you hear a story like that, absolutely it worries me about the system.
It could be me, it could be my wife, I don't know, and it's kind of scary.
An organization representing ER physicians says it's an issue Canada-wide.
The problem is definitely quite bad in Alberta and specifically in Edmonton right now, but I can tell you that emergency departments are struggling in crisis right across the country.
Both the health agency and the Alberta government say they won't comment on any of the cases outlined in the letter due to patient privacy. But the province has pledged to bring back triage doctors to help prioritize care, and the hospital minister is expected to meet with health providers to discuss other solutions. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
Tonight, people are remembering a legendary name in high fashion, the designer known as Valentino.
His clientele was people like Elizabeth Taylor and Audrey Hepburn, and his milieu was, I wouldn't even say jet set, because it was actually grander than that.
Valentino Garavani first made his mark in the 1960s, creating a trademark elegance that won fans among royalty and a very famous First Lady. His work was often on display when top actresses accepted an Academy Award. The designer died at the age of 93. He will lie in state in Rome later this week. Well, new inflation numbers are out, and food prices in Canada just keep going up.
I see people buying very little, Kraft dinner, a couple bananas.
The broader implications of costly grocery bills. Could the FIFA World Cup put a strain on healthcare?
If one person has the measles, everyone will be exposed.
The potential risks long after fans head home. And there is no digging out of this. We're back in 2.
Morning, sir. Morning, sir. Morning, Harry.
Well, that is Prince Harry arriving at London's High Court for the start of his final legal battle against the British tabloids. In this case, he and other high-profile figures like actor Elizabeth Hurley are accusing the Daily Mail's publisher of unlawful information gathering dating back to the early 90s, including phone hacking. Associated Newspapers has denied the allegations. Well, Statistics Canada says the annual inflation rate ticked up last month. It increased to 2.4% in December, compared to the same time last year when the federal government introduced a 2-month tax holiday on some items. December's rate is slightly higher than the 2.2% rate in November. Well, grocery prices were also up compared to last year. And as Paula Duhacek tells us, that is adding to Canadians' deepening economic anxiety.
These shoppers say they get sticker shock every time they hit the grocery store.
It's at least twice as much as it was before.
I see people buying very little, craft dinner, a couple bananas, a loaf of bread.
I only shop at Dollarama now.
Statistics Canada says inflation went up 2.4% in December compared to the year before. But that's largely because of the 2024 tax holiday that kept prices low. This holiday season, that didn't happen. Grocery prices are also up relative to the previous December. Two particular foods driving prices higher.
Coffee, beef, everything's on the rise, so you live with it.
The price of coffee was up about 31%, while beef was up nearly 17%. And when shoppers feel like the price of food is higher than it should be, experts say it takes a toll.
Having those components go up could really hurt, especially the lower income households that really have nowhere to hide when they're confronted with these challenges.
Now, a new Bank of Canada survey confirms morale is bad. Consumers are worried about high prices and the ongoing trade war with the U.S.
We're seeing the situation in Greenland. We're seeing ongoing war in Ukraine. We're seeing threats of tariffs on everybody. And so those sorts of factors can be more visceral.
There's still an enormous amount of fog and uncertainty when we think about, how we think about trade in the coming years.
Still, when you look at the past few months, inflation on the whole is becoming more stable, and economists are cautiously optimistic about the economy in the year ahead. Of course, it remains to be seen if that optimism makes its way back to consumers. Paula Duhacek, CBC News, Calgary.
Hundreds of ships operated illegally are traveling in international waters while aiming to avoid detection.
Their sole purpose is sanctions evasion and shipping sanctioned oil.
The risk posed by so-called ghost fleets. And is Canada falling behind in emerging AI technology?
We need to move this fast because it's happening and it's happening now.
The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. So these are Senegal fans clashing with stadium security during Sunday's Africa Cup of Nations final in Morocco, after a controversial penalty was awarded to the host nation, leading to a delay in the game. Senegal's coach ordered his players off the field for some 15 minutes. Well, today, FIFA's president condemned what he described as ugly scenes and called on Africa's football governing body to take appropriate measures. Well, a Toronto ER doctor is sounding the alarm about upcoming World Cup games in Canada. She worries large crowds may further strain the healthcare system. But as Jennifer Lagrassa explains, officials say they're preparing.
The countdown is on to the FIFA World Cup in Canada, but now a warning about what the influx of fans could mean for emergency rooms.
We are constantly running our healthcare system at 100% capacity, and I would be concerned going forward about having a surge in need for hospital resources.
In June, hundreds of thousands of people are expected to travel to Toronto and Vancouver for the games. That was top of mind for Dr. Catherine Varner while on shift during the Blue Jays World Series run last fall.
We had one ICU bed available.
Now, in a Canadian Medical Association journal editorial, Varner points to research showing that large gatherings can take a toll on the healthcare system.
This is a setup for the spread of contagious or infectious diseases.
COVID-19, measles, food and waterborne illnesses like hepatitis A are among the risks from the FIFA Games flagged by Public Health Ontario.
Measles is so contagious, and there are lower vaccination rates in many other countries, and there will be representation from these very countries during FIFA.
In Vancouver, after the 2010 Olympics, new measles strains led to an outbreak of 82 cases, 3 months following the event.
If one person has the measles, everyone will be exposed within 30 minutes.
And with the World Cup games this year running into July, health officials also worry about wildfires, knowing that smoke or heat warnings can send people to hospital. Vancouver's FIFA public health lead says he's confident the city can manage.
The health system does respond to issues like this with some regularity and does have mechanisms in place.
I think the challenge is execution of those plans.
For Varner, she says the system will adapt in a crisis, but she worries that it could come at the cost of quality care. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Toronto.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. As AI-powered robotics reshape the global workplace, is Canada lagging behind?
The way that we fund robotics is very scattered right now.
What industry experts say needs to change, but first.
They're an accident waiting to happen.
Huge oil tankers moving sanctioned oil under fake flags and false signals.
We're really seeing a potential danger to the environment, to human life.
The rise in shadow fleets and the tactics used to stay hidden. Washington has ramped up its crackdown, including the recent seizure of one ship flying the Russian flag. Eli Glasner looks at how they operate and the potential dangers when they go dark.
It's the sixth tanker to be seized. The U.S. says it's targeting what's being called Venezuela's shadow fleet.
The U.S. seized another oil tanker. You can see the seizure of the ship there.
As the American Armada closed its net around Venezuela, numerous vessels laden with hundreds of millions of dollars of oil made a run for it. This is part of the growing problem known as the ghost fleet. The name may seem supernatural.
The moonlight shows us for what we really are.
But it's a very real world involving fake flags, zombie ships, and Nicolas Cage.
You, over the side, we're changing the name.
We'll get to that in a bit. But first, what is the ghost fleet, also known as the dark fleet or shadow fleet? According to the financial intelligence firm S&P Global, as many as 1 in 5 oil tankers worldwide are smuggling oil from sanctioned countries. And this epidemic of illegal ships has consequences for us all.
90% of world trade happens by sea. That means no shipping, no shopping.
Assume that the oceans are wide open for trade and commerce. Now, all of a sudden, that may not be as true as in the past.
So how do these ships operate? Let's take the case of the Bella 1, which changed its name to the Marinera, a typical ghost ship move. This was the oil tanker that fled from Venezuela, only to be boarded and seized by the U.S. near Iceland. Ian Ralby is a maritime lawyer and president of a company that helps shipping companies navigate emerging threats.
The Bella 1 is an example of one of many vessels that is now being used to move these sanctioned cargoes, and it is doing so with a variety of techniques and tactics trying to avoid law enforcement and any kind of intervention.
And the Bella 1 is far from alone. Michelle Bachman works for Windward, a company that surveys and tracks maritime activity.
Over the fourth quarter, we had record levels of deceptive shipping practices such as flag hopping, GPS jamming.
As Iran and Russia in particular look to get around restrictive sanctions, the ghost fleet business has been booming.
Their sole purpose is sanctions evasion and shipping sanctioned oil.
When we talk vessels, we're talking principally about oil tankers then?
Yeah, internationally trading crude oil tankers. There's a cohort of maybe about 1,400 that we keep an eye on.
That's right, 1,400. Now, you might be wondering, how does a rogue oil tanker that's about 300,000 tons hide? So let's take a typical vessel of the ghost fleet. Usually, it's an older ship near the end of its economic life. It likely wouldn't pass inspection or qualify for insurance at home, so instead they stay out at sea and become ghosts. Now, a legally operating vessel can be mainly identified by 3 ways: the name, the flag it's flying, and the AIS, or Automatic Identification System. That's a transponder that broadcasts information about the ship.
Yeah, there's a whole series of data points that you can broadcast via AIS, so you know where the ship is, the ship's depth in the water, the flag.
But to avoid detection, all of this can be changed.
Some ships have 2 AISs on board, so they may switch one off and switch another, or alternate and pretend to be somewhere else. You've got zombie ships where they actually take on the identity of a dead ship that was scrapped and can take and start broadcasting a fake number.
Besides changing the AIS or even turning it off completely, ships will also change their flag. And flying the flag of a specific country is a big deal.
When a country allows a vessel to fly its flag, it comes with a lot of responsibility to that flag state. In other words, the state has to be willing to impose its national law on that vessel throughout the entirety of its operations. That is a big responsibility. And so a flag state usually wants to engage in a bit of due diligence before making that decision.
That's if they have a flag at all.
You know, the really rogue ones, they don't even have flags anymore.
And there's one more trick to try, physically changing the ship from the name to more.
Sometimes they will put tarpaulins over the front of the ship so you can't photograph it. Or so if you're looking via satellite, they might paint the deck of the ship a different color.
Which is exactly what happened when the Bella 1 was fleeing from the Americans. After spoofing the AIS and switching from the flag of Guyana to Russia,
the crew went and repainted the hull of the vessel in order to obscure its previous identity.
How often have you seen that, Ian, repainting a vessel?
So this is a technique we've seen a lot more frequently used by criminals since the release of Nicolas Cage's movie The Lord of War, where famously in the movie we see somebody go over the side of the vessel to repaint the name of the ship and to obscure its identity because it's being pursued by Interpol.
While the effect of Nicolas Cage fandom can't be underestimated, the growing presence of ghost fleets has maritime watchers worried.
They're operating these vessels outside the norms. We're really seeing a potential danger to the environment, to human life.
Sal Mercogliano is a former merchant marine and historian.
The initial shadow fleet existed when U.S. and other countries put sanctions against Iran and Venezuela, but it just went on steroids when Russia invaded Ukraine.
And increasingly, Russia is playing a major role.
Over December and into the first weeks of January, we've tracked 22 vessels that have now gone from false flags, like fraudulent registries that didn't exist, and they've gone to Russia. I've been following the Dark Fleet for 6 years. This is quite unusual and something that we believe may accelerate.
And while Ukraine's President Zelensky is already calling for more enforcement, saying when there is political will, oil flows can be stopped, Mercogliano sees danger ahead, whether it's environmental.
We could potentially see these horrific accidents. And understand, we see accidents all the time with ships that are, following the rules, but we have problems with them. Now these ships are on top of it, operating outside the bounds, hard to identify who their owner is. And again, I think the real big issue here has to do with insurance. A massive oil spill, the likes of Exxon Valdez, would be horrific off the coast of, Canada.
Or the potential for military conflict.
When you engage in a boarding operation of a tanker, particularly a tanker that is known to have deficiencies on its standards of operation, safety, environmental concerns and controls, there are all kinds of things that could go wrong, from injuries to deaths to catastrophic spills. And when you then add in foreign military escorts, you end up with a potentially volatile picture that could bring two states into, or more, into armed conflict with each other out at sea.
Already there have been instances of Russian military involvement, from the submarine that was reportedly escorting the Bella 1 to a Russian fighter jet that appeared when the Estonian Navy intercepted a suspected Ghost Fleet tanker. But Michelle Bachmann isn't worried about escalation. She says we should be thanking the United States.
The US is doing the international maritime community a favor by removing these vessels from trade because of their, highly dangerous condition. They're an accident waiting to happen.
So Eli, serious threats, not at all unknown threats to Canada, but what is this country doing to deal with them?
Well, they're doing some things. We reached out to Global Affairs Canada, and according to that agency, this country is taking action against shadow fleets. In October, Canada and actually Denmark convened a meeting of other G7 and Baltic countries of the Shadow Fleet Task Force, where they're working on information sharing and cooperation. In addition, Canada's already imposed sanctions on over 400 Russian vessels, barring them from entering Canadian waters. And Adrian, certainly as Arctic shipping lanes continue to open up, the potential for these ships to try and pass through Canadian waters is only going to increase.
All right, maybe a lot more eyes on them. Eli Glasner, thank you.
My pleasure.
AI-driven robots are redefining industrial automation globally, but are Canadian businesses adapting quickly enough?
We are at the very, very low when it comes to adoption of robotics outside of automotive.
The change many are calling for to close the gap. Next. Global businesses are using AI-enabled robots at an accelerated pace, but are Canadian industries keeping up?
You need to invest a lot before the product is ready, right? And that's something that Canada is not necessarily ready with.
Nora Young breaks down the state of play in this country when it comes to robotics and the possible risks of falling behind.
Bots are hot. Robots are on the cusp of a boom, combining sophisticated hardware with today's AI.
There is a massive revolution about to happen. We're going to see in 5 to 10 years robots everywhere.
But as countries like China surge ahead, is Canada getting left behind?
We are at the very, very low when it comes to adoption of robotics outside of automotive.
I'd like to see a national robotics strategy.
When I say robots, you might think of cool humanoids doing impressive physical stunts, or traditional industrial robots on the factory floor, tirelessly following a set of specific instructions over and over. But the excitement isn't over what they look like, it's that increasingly they're powered by today's AI, the same general approach that underlies AI like ChatGPT.
We have cracked the nut of that next generation technology where generative AI can really enable us to do this complex task to the next level.
Traditionally, robots are painstakingly programmed to follow a set of steps, and it's time-consuming to reprogram them. These driverless trucks from Canadian company Wabi can be trained in virtual environments.
Now with AI, the equation totally changes, because now these robots have the ability to very quickly learn to perform not only those tasks, but much more sophisticated tasks.
As today's robots get smaller, cheaper, and more flexible, that could open up demand from smaller companies.
They don't want to have to do coding and a lot of programming in order to make that happen. When there's sufficient intelligence baked into that process, the robot itself can learn how to complete a task. It doesn't need to be coded.
That potential of AI plus robotics is a big part of what's called physical AI.
Hello, Las Vegas!
It was a big buzzword at this month's Consumer Electronics Show.
One of the biggest, most important one is physical AI.
The existing market for robots is now led by China, which is surging ahead in adopting and increasingly building today's industrial robots.
Of those robots that were newly installed in 2024, so roughly speaking around the globe, we have 500,000 robots newly added to factory floors. And of those 500,000 robots, more than 250,000 have been installed in China.
Yep, around half of all the world's industrial robots installed in 2024 were installed in China. So where does Canada stand at a pivotal moment in robotics?
This is our CAS robot.
Avidbots is based in Kitchener, Ontario, in the heart of Southern Ontario's tech hub.
Our robots operate very similar to the way autonomous cars operate. They use LiDAR to basically find their position in the facility. So they have a large map and they know where they are. And then they have other sensors to avoid and detect obstacles.
Their floor cleaning robots rely on a range of types of AI. That includes deep learning, an approach that underlies physical AI. Avidbots designs and assembles their robots here in Canada, but that's not where most of their sales are.
We probably have deployed 15% in Canada. Whenever we would pitch to, say, like an airport over here and an airport there, the airport in the United States, at least, for example, they're just more open. They move faster, they believe in robotics more, they're more used to it.
In fact, Canada lags behind many other countries. It ranks 13th in the world in adoption of industrial robotics, behind countries like Spain, India, Mexico, and Italy.
Big leaders in robotics adoption right now would be South Korea, China, as well as a lot of our important trading partners like the US.
And a disproportionate amount of our robotics adoption is in the automotive sector, meaning outside of that sector, Canada's even further behind.
So what's getting in the way of Canada further developing its robotics?
If you want to get into our trucks, to see them, on public roads, it's all in the US. Because our regulations are not ready for us to deploy here, providing that regulatory framework so that physical AI can be deployed at large in the country. We need to move this fast because it's happening now.
The way that we fund robotics is very scattered right now. Ontario has defined robotics as a critical technology. We're very happy about that, but federally there is no such a thing. They have not defined robotics and bus automation as a critical technology. I think that's a mistake. It's extremely important for the long term of manufacturing of the country.
Countries including China, South Korea, Denmark, Germany, and Japan have national robotics strategies. That can include measures like upskilling and training, incentives, and funding.
We have a strategy for artificial intelligence. We have a strategy for clean tech. We have a strategy for quantum.
We contacted Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada. They told us that the federal government is considering a broad range of issues related to the development, commercialization, and adoption of AI technologies, including applications related to physical AI systems and automation. But at this time, they are not pursuing a standalone national robotics strategy. Tech strategy is linked to productivity. Canadian productivity has lagged for decades, and there's evidence that robotics adoption can boost that, and evidence that adopting robotics doesn't mean job loss.
While just 2% of Canadian firms have adopted robots, they contribute to 7.5% of Canadian employment. They've also found that firms that adopt robots tend to grow their workforce close to 20% over a 10-year period.
If we really are at a turning point with robotics, where robots plus AI is about to take off,
you need to invest a lot before the product is ready, right? And that's something that Canada is not necessarily ready with our, the type of funds and things that we have to really enable. And as a consequence, we risk that as you go through funding rounds and things like this, our own companies become more and more US focused. And at some point, they are kind of pushed to move to the US.
The core question remaining, do we have a sustainable path to building this industry beyond traditional industrial applications? Or will Canada continue to trail behind? And it's a pressing issue as AI gets physical.
Now, Ottawa says it is working on an AI strategy, but has not yet made it public. It says it expects to address issues such as talent adoption and public trust in AI systems. Well, coming up, Russia gets hit by a record snowfall, burying buildings with meters of accumulation. The unique ways some are trying to cope, next in our moment. When a wintry country like Russia gets hit with its worst snowfall in decades, you know that means it is a lot of snow, and it is a very good bet that the scenery is epic. Now, Canadians know heavy snow can be totally inconvenient, even dangerous, but here's a reality check from Russia, where locals on the Kamchatka Peninsula also found a way to get over themselves and make it as fun as possible. That is why their storm is our moment. When the snow piles up to nearly 4 meters, and yes, you heard that right, 4 meters, there's always a chance for a lively tumble or two.
Если вам в эти подъезды надо.
The snow has been piling up since early December there, but a series of storms in the last few weeks pushed records aside, buried doors and staircases and cars, and there is nowhere left to put it all, so they might as well play in it.
Доброе утро.
Though others have been left with a daunting task, taking that snow, carving out a path or tunnel of sorts, or sometimes just shoving it. One thing we all know, as astonishing as it is to look at it now, that inevitable melt will be a mess. So some of the first pictures to come out of Russia of the snowstorm were so unbelievable, the presumption was that they just weren't real. A lot of them, the ones you just saw, are absolutely real, and the drifting in some cases has caused apartment buildings on the 4th floor of buildings to be totally engulfed. From all of us at The National, thank you for being with us. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.